I just think listening to people who have been in the profession for a really long time, who've made huge impact, who have written 200 journal articles and who have come up against their own challenges, who have rebelled against certain ways and practicing as per policies and procedures and doing things how they thought. It gives us the courage because we are now stepping into this space of current occupational therapy and how we want the profession to evolve. We need to stand on the shoulders of the occupational therapists who have walked before us and now take occupational therapy into the future. Like, this is our role. How can we contribute? How can we evolve the profession? Just knowing our roots, knowing what the current living legends have contributed and what they believe occupational therapy actually is. And then inspiring us to go, okay, how do I want to show up? How do I want to practice?
You're listening to the Brave OT podcast with me, Carlin Neek. This podcast is all about empowering occupational therapists to step up, level up, blaze some trails, and maybe engage in a little conscious rebellion in service of our profession, our clients, our work, our businesses, and living our mission wholeheartedly. We are all about keeping it real, doing hard things, unhustling, being curious, exploring, growing through our challenges, and finding joy, fulfillment, and vitality as we do so. Really, we're OTing ourselves and each other. I hope you love this episode. Today, we're peeling back the layers of what it truly means to be an OT with a heart for change. We have with us Rhiannon Crispe. She's a trailblazer who's not just living the OT life, but redefining it. Through her story, we explore what it was really like to create a documentary about OT. And we explore resisting externally imposed urgency and being brave enough to do things in your own time. I hope you're ready to embrace the twists and turns of an OT journey less traveled, to find the intersection where passion meets purpose. This is more than just a dialogue. It's a call to be brave, to unhustle, and to light up the path for others in our field. So take a deep breath and let the spirit of curiosity lead the way, and prepare to be inspired. Rhiannon is an occupational therapist in Australia who owns a private practice and is the founder of the OT lifestyle movement. She's a self-described salty soul. She's a dreamer and a doer, a goal setter and a go-getter, a change agent and a game changer. I am sure you'll love this conversation as much as I did. Let's dive in curiously and explore authentic living with Rhiannon Crispe. I really appreciate you being here on my podcast. I really enjoyed being on your podcast, the OT Lifestyle Movement. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm so excited.
I really wanted to talk to you about the film. I love how the Australians call it a doco, short for documentary.
Everything ends with an O in Australia.
I love it. Also about the documentary is Finding Me in OT. I found it like an OT, sort of almost like a rally and this uprising of all the things that representing that we see OT as, and sometimes we don't feel like we can fully be. Tell me a little bit more. Tell the audience about it.
Yeah, so finding me in OT. This is something that I started creating back in 2020. I got out my big butcher's paper and I had all these ideas and thoughts around OT
Mm.
that I wanted to share more with a wider community, with the OT community. Basically, it started because I've been on my own journey in occupational therapy. There have been points in my career where I have just felt so uninspired, burnt out, and frustrated and jaded by the profession that I've wanted to give it up altogether.
Mm.
When I had my daughter, I think I'd done around 5 years of OT, and I had my daughter, and it just gave me the time and space to think what I wanted to do with my life. You know, you go on maternity leave and you think, oh, what am I doing with my life? Do I really love my job? And at this point, I didn't. I didn't really love working as an occupational therapist. It was really just going to work, paying the bills, getting that paycheck at the end of the week, and I didn't find it fulfilling, like personally fulfilling. And I became a personal trainer and I started doing that. And I loved that. I loved the energy. I loved how I changed personally and what I was doing in my work and the changes and the results that I'd see with the clients that I was working with. I was outside in nature. I was running boot camps. It was really personally satisfying because I'd started going through this point in my life where I was changing lots of different things. I was growing, I was evolving, I was really taking a deep dive into personal development. I started reading personal development books, and I'd never read a book in my life. I never enjoyed reading. And all of a sudden, this world of personal development got me hook, line, and sinker. And so I started changing the way I was eating. I was moving really intentionally. I was outside in nature. I was creating meaningful connections. And my personal life was changing like rapidly. But I was in this career where I felt really stuck. I was thinking after my daughter started getting older, like, what am I doing? Am I going to go back to OT or am I just going to be the personal trainer? And I started looking more into what's possible within OT. And this is sort of really the journey over quite a few years. I've been an occupational therapist for 16 years now. And there have been points where I've just had to reflect and think, what can I do? What do I want to do? How can I show up authentically? How can I work in a way that's aligned with my values? And how can I bring the energy that I want to bring to my work? I started looking into ways that I could do this, and I just realized how broad OT is. Like the absolute depth and breadth of our profession is incredible. Like we can work with anyone at any age or stage across the lifespan, in any environment, any context, to help them to do something that they want or need to do. That's something that's meaningful to them. And I just thought, gosh, I want to do this. I want to do OT, because a part of me wanted to get out and be a life coach as well. I wanted to be a life coach because that's really what I wanted to do. But I didn't realize the heart of OT and the history of OT and how we evolved. And I think I was just really doing this superficial going in, working with clients. I don't know, it just felt very mundane and my heart and my soul wasn't in it. And then you're part of many of the big OT Facebook groups too. I started realizing, gosh, there've been so many other OTs who are sharing very vulnerably their story that I don't enjoy what I do. I'm burnt out. I'm a new grad OT. I want to give up. I don't enjoy this anymore. OT isn't what I thought it was going to be. I've been disillusioned. And I just felt this compulsion. Like I felt this need and this desire to share my story, to give hope almost to other OTs that there is a way forward. And actually, there's so much that you can do. Like, tell me what you're interested in, and I can tell you how you can work in that space.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to create a film because I feel like that was just such a beautiful way to get across a lot of the themes and a lot of the messages that I wanted to convey, as opposed to a podcast or as opposed to any other sort of medium. And I just started working on it and creating it. And it was really a way to share my story
Mhm.
about my journey through occupational therapy, but also bring in expert occupational therapists. I call them the living legends of
Yes, you had
OT.
so many legends on there. It was like the superstars of OT.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I wanted to hear it from them. Like I wanted to combine narrative with knowledge and everyday life through some of the clients' stories. I wanted to weave it all together. And I wanted to inspire the hearts and the minds of other occupational therapists from around the world that this really is an incredible, heart centered, heart led profession.
Mhm.
We just need to find what I talk about this in the film is this intersection in the road between our passion and the people. Like, find something that you're passionate about? What do you love? Like, what do you really enjoy? And where's the need in the community? And how can you find that intersection between what you love and where that need is? And go to that place, go to that part in the road, go to that intersection. And it's not always as easy as that because you're working your day job or you're doing OT in a certain context or environment or setting. But there's hope and there's possibility and there's potential for us to do meaningful work. We just need to work it out what it is that we want to do.
So you were in this place of feeling disillusioned yourself, feeling disconnected, craving something different. You went on a journey long before you endeavored on the documentary and figured it out and found your way back to OT in your heart. What changed? Like, what looked different outwardly? Did you work in a different setting? Did you start your private practice then? What was your own personal journey back then?
Yeah. I think it was very gradual evolution. And I started weaving in what I call lifestyle optimization principles or pillars. And this really referred to because I was going on my own personal journey of changing what I ate, moving more, just really my own personal evolution. The people and the families that I was working with, I was like, "Ugh, there's so much here that I can help them with that they might not be aware of that will help them get to their goals." I changed, like I went low tox living, everything was changing. And so I started incorporating some of the things that I was passionate about into my work. So I did have my own private practice. So I was flexible in, I suppose, how I could practice. And I started, yeah, doing different things with clients on healthy eating habits. I became more aware, back in the day, I was working at a special development school and we'd provide treats, for good behavior. And there were lollipops and all sorts of things. And so I just really shifted what I was doing in my life and what I was learning, it started to reflect in how I was also practicing. So healthy eating, I was helping people in the kitchen more. We were getting out, just doing sessions in nature and sometimes not even talking with the clients, why I was doing what, but just going outside and just seeing how that fitted with that client. I started running sessions at the hot springs. I was living in Catherine, so very like a desert. And there's these hot springs out there, and we'd just go out and we'd work on our connection and engagement and whatever the goal was. But in the hot springs, doing something fun, doing something that the child wanted to do instead of doing it at home or doing it in a clinic or, I just started thinking outside the box and doing things a little bit differently. And that filled my cup, but it was also so beneficial for the clients that I was working with. So it was little tweaks in how I was practicing, but then also I suppose just this knowing that I'm working with someone who is at a very vulnerable part in their life. They're coming to a professional, seeking help, seeking guidance, seeking coaching and someone to be with them on their journey. And it was just such a revelation, just such a mindset shift too, that what I do and how I show up in this space can create a really big impact in this person's life. And I think sometimes we get so bogged down in the day to day that, it's just like, oh, next appointment or next client, next patient, he come in, we do our work without really thinking about how we're showing up.
Mhm.
And I've learned that the client really, I feel like changes my life in more profound ways than sometimes I help them with their life. Like it's this, what they give to me is so valuable and it's changed me. It's shifted me, like how I show up and this therapeutic use of self and just using myself in the therapy process has been a big part of me and changing how I work as an occupational therapist as well. Um, my way of being.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love what you're saying too about that when people are at this very vulnerable spot in their life. and they've come to you and you're there to have an impact. Often, I think, and we see this in business too, often OTs feel like they need to give them more, more, more. And so often, it's a very small thing that was the most impactful thing. That if we can build a relationship, if we can do things that are meaningful and just be sort of more clear and connected in that process, leaving 10 worksheets behind is not the thing that's going to make the difference. It's, I mean, so often I've asked people I work with adults in mental health. And so at the end, I'll often say, hey, just curious, what was the most impactful part? Like, what was most impactful for you? And invariably, they say something that I didn't even remember. Like, maybe I did or didn't say it, but that was the thing, just a small thing that wasn't the workbook or the curriculum or the the lesson or the
100%.
technique. It was like, "You said this," and that made everything different.
Mhm, mhm. And that was just through the flow of the moment and
Yeah.
what you felt was right to say in that moment. And they've actually done a lot of studies in psychotherapy where they've found that it's not the intervention that actually creates the change or shifts the
Relationship.
behavior.
Yeah.
It's the therapeutic use of self. And so this is a theme and this is something that is spoken a lot in the film. So
Yeah.
I spoke to, yeah, incredible living legends. I spoke to Carolyn Baum, Winnie Dunn, Michael Awama, Jen Gash, Charles Christensen, Kim Barthel,
Marcel. Yeah. Yeah.
Steve Matthew. And one of the things that Michael Awama talks about is he said something like, the longer that I stay in this career of occupational therapy, the more that I realize that it's love and empathy that actually heals. And this was so like, this just hit me like, what, it's so true. It resonated so deeply with me that it's the times that I'm with clients when they're crying and just being there, listening, being open, being curious, coming in non-judgmentally. This listening to someone's story, their occupational history, and knowing how they got to this point, where they want to go, walking side by side with them, that's what moves the needle. It's not, like you said, the worksheet.
Achieving the SMART goal might not be it.
Exactly. And so practicing in this way that really felt aligned also shifted my get up and go, my willingness to jump out of bed in the morning to go and help someone in a way that I felt was really meaningful and that did make a difference. But learning from these living legends and listening to what they had to say, I feel like we don't practice in that way a lot. I feel like the confines and the barriers that we have in our everyday practice of systems and bigger things that sometimes we feel we can't change or we can't work in a way that we want keep us stuck. But we can always use therapeutic use of self. We can always show empathy. And I feel like people think that this isn't sciencey, like this isn't science based. There's so much research out there
Oh,
on
there is.
empathy. There's so much research out there on therapeutic use of self. So just because it's not, again, something that Kim Barthel says in the movies, just because it's not an ABAB trial, it's something that may be harder to measure, and it's more of the qualitative, not the quantitative. It's still meaningful. And that qualitative part of our work is something that I feel that, fits very closely with occupational therapy because it comes back to story, it comes back to narrative, it comes back to listening to another person's story and helping them on their journey. Um,
And don't you think I think that so much of OT is a way of I was talking to my son. So I have a son who's graduating from high school, and we were talking about different careers and different choices and things like that, and how medicine wouldn't have medicine would have been a challenge for me because memorizing a lot of important detail without much room for error is a challenge for me. Whereas OT, I had to learn a lot. Certainly, I had to memorize a lot of things, but ultimately, I learned a way of seeing the world, a way of seeing human behavior, a way of seeing motivation, a way of problem solving. way of approaching people and understanding them in their context and innately having that caring approach and that empathy and all of those things. And those are the things that sort of evidence based, right? There's occupational science, there's the way that we are approaching things that the what we do, whether we used a particular type of reacher or a method of psychotherapy or something like that, that maybe it's less relevant that that specific tool be evidence based when the whole approach is based in evidence. It's based in science.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And I think we forget this because we are looking for that hard, quote unquote, the hard evidence or the tool or the strategy or the know how or the 12 steps to
Mhm.
this. We want that. We want the blueprint often. But what I've learned over my journey is that there, there is no one size fits all approach
No.
to occupational therapy or for any human being, even if it is medicine. There is a no one size fits all approach yet. That medical model, that reductionistic model that is we also talk about in the film is, it has been beneficial in certain ways, but it means that we're breaking a person down into certain systems
Mhm.
and we're looking at that system without thinking about how it affects the whole person. And
Mm.
so, as occupational therapists, we don't just look at the diagnosis, we don't just look at the disease, we don't zoom in on the body part that's injured or the mind, because there are other things going on for that person in their life. We look at a person in the context of their environment, so their social environment, their physical environment, we look at their history, we appreciate that, and we look at their beliefs, their culture, their own personal traits and characteristics. And we bring all this together. It's like this beautiful braid, and we braid it all together. But I think the important part here, and something that has become more clear as opposed to me as I've gotten older too, is that we see it, not trying to see it through our lens, but to see their life through their lens. And I think this is a big part of empathy and is, yeah, seeing someone's life through their lens. What does it look like for them? Because we come in obviously with our own beliefs. We can't get rid of them. We come in with our own beliefs and our own values. And they can be very different to the people that we're working with. We might be working with people who are totally different from us. And, I know this is the Brave OT podcast, and it's being brave and courageous and having moral courage is standing up for people who are different to us and holding tension simultaneously. So knowing that they believe in something that maybe opposes our belief and our view of the world. How do we
Mhm.
hold that tension and still help them to achieve what it is that's meaningful to them, even though it goes against what we believe in? So I think harnessing that moral courage and
Mm.
cultivating that is challenging, but it's also necessary.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. People are so much more than the referral goal,
And
and being able to see what they need and want and desire and through their values is really important.
yeah.
I'm thinking this going about doing this as a documentary, going about getting these living legends to interview, that was very brave. Did you just go confidently into this and just say, "Yeah, I've got this. No problem."
Um, yes and no.
Yep.
I am very ambitious.
Yes, you are.
I have a lot of big dreams and I I don't know, I think about life every day. I'm so reflective. I always think, gosh, like my phrase that I use all the time, Colin, is this is it. Like I say to my husband all the time, like on our walk, I'm like, babe, this is it. This is life. Like, what are we doing with our life? Is this
Yeah.
what we want to do? Or what's going on? And so it's always at the forefront of my mind that this is it. This is life. And I know if you look at the regrets of the dying, there was that nurse, I think she was based in Australia actually, who did those interviews. And one of the biggest regrets was living a life that wasn't true to me. And she asked people on their deathbed, what do you regret the most about your life? And there were different ones, but one of them was, yeah, living a life that wasn't true to me. And so I hope that every day I live a life that is true to me. And that does mean being courageous and doing things that are uncomfortable and scary and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and um, possibly getting rejected. And I did get rejected. Actually, I did send out, there were an extra two other people I asked to interview and they said no, and for their own reasons.
Mhm.
But you always get those emails back and you kind of cringe going, oh, I don't want to open this. Like, I don't want to read what's the reason when they say no for. But that's it, and now life's gone on and I've forgotten about that and I don't care anymore. And I've created this beautiful film. But two, I suppose the backstory is that I've had a podcast. So I sort of had a bit of preparation in terms of connecting with other people, interviewing, talking to people. Even before the OT lifestyle movement, I had another podcast that I did about 80 episodes on. So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, a lot of professionals, reaching out to a lot of really expert people. I've run summits and different things. So it's not like I just stepped out there and
Yeah.
decided to create this. Even starting the OT lifestyle movement was courageous for me because when I started it, I thought, gosh, who am I? Who am I? Who am I to create the OT lifestyle movement? Because I felt like I don't know enough. What if someone asks me a question that I don't know? I felt like when I was working in my private practice, I was the expert and I could help my clients because I felt like I knew more than them. That's how I felt. I know obviously now I don't, and they bring so much. But that was the feeling that I had. And then I thought when I stepped into the OT lifestyle movement, like I'm on the same level here. And in fact, there's going to be OTs who've worked way more years. What if I say something that people reject and that people go, or OTs go, oh my gosh, what is this Lenny been talking about? Like she has
Mhm.
no idea.
Yeah, worried about that too. Yes, I can
Yeah,
relate. Yeah.
yeah, because people bring up topics in a conversation. You're like, oh, I don't know,
Mhm.
never heard of that before, or I don't know what you're talking about. And it is this being brave enough to go, okay, well, that's going to happen. And I'm going to be rejected, or I'm not going to know something, or people are going to know more than me, and they may not be interested. And that's fine. You've just got to, again, go, this is it. This is my path. I choose this. And I'm being vulnerable because I want to be better at this. Not because I think I'm the best OT who has all the knowledge, who wants to share things. I'm really the messenger. Like I feel like with everything that I create, I just want to be the messenger. I just want to have the platform to share other OT stories and to share, um, yeah, the beauty of our profession. So yeah, it's been a bit of an evolution writing the film.
What made you choose a film? 'Cause nobody's doing that. That was
Okay.
going your whole own path. I like that.
I know. I love film. I love storytelling. I feel like it's a beautiful art. And I'd seen other people who were also creating film. And I thought, gosh, I could do that. Every year I create a film. I haven't done that for the last few years. I've been a bit slack, but it's off my to-do list. But I create a film because my girls love seeing what's happened in the year. They love watching it. Like my little one, Zaylee, when she hears a song, and that song was one that I paired with when she was born, the baby photos. She's like, Mum, my song's on. And so
Aw.
like they just love watching themselves and looking back and reflecting back. So leaning into that passion, leaning into something that I love and doing something that was meaningful to me. But also because I think that film creates impact. It's emotive, so you can feel emotion. The amount of emails that I've had from OTs that have said, I cried in your film. Like I did want to evoke some of that. And you don't get that so much in a podcast, on a blog. And this is something that could keep. So I just thought, why not?
I bet. I cried watching it. It was really, really emotive for me as well. Like, it just felt this, I don't feel like I ever lost my connection to OT, but I felt like it was this, like, kind of blossoming up inside of me, all of the things I love about OT, and then expanding it into more that I'd never been able to articulate or never heard it said that way before, that just all felt like this really beautiful package of our profession, something to really be proud of.
Mm,
We did
absolutely.
it.
Yeah. And yeah, I hope it conveys that in the film. Like, that's what I hope, that people walk away feeling inspired, feeling reconnected to the roots of occupational therapy. I got some clips and some footage of occupational therapists, like years ago, black and white footage, and talk a bit about the history of OT. And we look at, yeah, just the professional's point of views, and they say it, like you said, so articulately that it makes you go, yes. I've had emails from OTs who have said, I was just screaming, yes, yes, yes. Like, this is what I love about OT. And I wanted to bring OTs in who had different points of views. And what I did actually was ask them pretty much all the same questions and then decide which ones got to the heart and how they portrayed whatever they were trying to say. I just brought it all together. Yeah. And I love it too. I just think listening to people who have been in the profession for a really long time, who've made huge impact, who have written 200 journal articles and who have come up against their own challenges, who have rebelled against certain ways and practicing as per policies and procedures and doing things how they thought. It gives us the courage because we are now, right, stepping into this space of current occupational therapy and how we want the profession to evolve. We need to stand on the shoulders of the occupational therapists who have walked before us and now take occupational therapy into the future. Like, this is our role. How can we contribute? How can we evolve the profession? And so just knowing our roots, knowing what the current living legends have contributed and what they believe occupational therapy actually is. And then inspiring us to go, okay, how do I want to show up? How do I want to practice? The diversity and the scope of OT is incredible. And this is another part that really, I suppose, fueled my fire, was learning from other OTs from all around the world that they are practicing in animal assisted therapy, they're practicing in acupressure, they're practicing in sexology and spirituality and so many different areas that I was like, really, like, okay, how do you do that? And so, yeah, just constantly pulling at the threads and learning more has been part of my journey.
Oh, that's really, really, really beautiful. Now, you've heard from a lot of OTs after they've listened. You've been describing some of those things. Have you heard stories of people taking documentary and doing interesting things or evolving things themselves or sharing it in forums that you didn't expect it to be shared in?
I've had so many emails that I haven't been able to reply to them all, unfortunately, given the limited time we have each day. But I've had so many university lecturers reach out actually and say, "Can I share this with my students?" I've had a lot of, actually, a few of the American state organizations or associations reach out asking if they can share it at their state conference. The world premiere is actually at the AOTA Inspire Conference 23.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that was a great invitation to that. And I think this bravery part, like just stepping into something, just leaning into something, having this harebrained idea of, I'm going to create a film. I have no idea. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's not the best film out there, but it conveys the message that I wanted to convey. And it was a creative outlet for me. And I think just stepping into that opens up so many possibilities. It opens up opportunities that I didn't think would ever happen. Being at the AOTA Inspire conference and sharing something, being part of these different universities. And I mean, like I said, the OT lifestyle movement and stepping into this different role was really organic and just felt like I wanted to do it because it was the again, it was lifestyle movement. So, because I was all about changing my lifestyle and, and it's evolved. And I don't think we ever know how things are going to end up. But
Mhm.
if we don't try, we'll never know. And, so, I've stepped into things that haven't worked out and didn't eventuate. And that's okay too. But I think it's being brave enough just to lean into it and just to start. And then if
Mhm.
it is something that really lights your fire, then to have the courage to stick it out, to keep
Mhm.
going, because we can easily just say no. But I think staying the course can, can bring obstacles, but having the courage to work through them is all part of it.
It was a very vulnerable thing you did. Well, maybe vulnerable. Well, you tell me. You went about creating this film, which was a new media for delivery of an OT message. I really think that was such a brave thing. And talking to these people and really digging in to question some of the way things are, to get back to the roots, to get different perspectives. And then you put this film out there and acknowledging that, hey, I'm not a filmmaker. This is like, I'm passionate about this. I've made some films for my family and my friends. And I noticed you put it out. And then we saw a little less of you for a while. And then you came back and promoted it. Can
Yes.
you explain? Like, I can only imagine because it was so vulnerable, but are you willing to share what happened in that space?
Yeah. Yeah, so I put the film out there and I think so much energy went into that and into just there was a lot of things going on in my life. And we spoke in our podcast where I was interviewing you on the
Yep.
OT lifestyle movement. Yeah, that there are times where it's okay not to show up. If you're on social media, if you've got a platform, it's okay not to show up. And that was a point in my life where I just had so much going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I put this film out there and I didn't market it. I did not share it. I think I had like one or two posts. I didn't
Yeah.
share it with anyone, like universities, or I just didn't put the word out there at all. And I think I might have had 8 months where I didn't do anything. I might have shared one or two things here and there, but I really drew back and it was just space and time for me in my personal life, to be
Mm.
honest. I just, yeah, wanted to step back for me and nurture me and my lifestyle again. And I think we go through that in life and in business, like these ebbs and these flows, and being okay with that, being okay with not constantly and consistently showing up on social media if that's part of your business. And, like everyone's still there. I came back, everyone's still there, and engagement is great again because I am showing up. But I have to do what's true to me. And at that time, I didn't feel like showing up on social media. I didn't feel like posting. I think we go through waves of inspiration too. It's unsustainable to live life on a high. And I was fine in like personal life was fine, but I just didn't have the energy and the time to invest in social media. So it was
Yep.
the thing that had to give. And I was okay with that. And I think
Mm.
in life, you've just got to think, okay, how's my time being spent? And I just thought, look, it's okay. I'm going to come back and I'll market it when I'm ready. And so I did come back and I started sharing about it. And it's interesting because you just never know how things will pan out. But I was approached actually by a company, STI Sim Drive. They are a company over in the States who create driving simulation to help people return to driving. So simulators. And I was approached by their marketer and asked whether like they essentially helped me to present my film at the AOTA Inspire conference. They wanted to sponsor it. So I have no idea how they came across my Instagram page and they saw something and they connected. But potentially, if things had have worked out differently, maybe they wouldn't have come up. You just don't know how things work. And so it still worked out perfectly fine and it's still getting out there. So I
Mm.
think courage and being brave in stepping back and not always doing and just going, it is being brave to just not feel like I have to show up and have to continuously be on social media. Like that was a courageous act for me because I'm constantly go, go, go. I feel like I have to serve. I feel like I have to reply to all my messages, as soon as someone inboxes me. And that's exhausting.
It is.
Stepping
And
back.
I think it's really I love how you've shared this. We talked about it in our interview on your podcast about letting some of the pressure of those timelines go. And a marketing expert might say, well, that was your moment. You released this film. You need to then go show up like crazy and do the whole circuit and promote it and promote it and promote it. Don't miss this moment. And you didn't. You went, I need to nurture. I'm sure you expended so much energy into that, so much of your heart and soul. You need to recharge for a little while and all the other things that happen in life. And there was nothing lost. You came back and your moment was when you show up. That's when your moment is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Awesome.
for anyone, I suppose, listening to this who feels like they are continuously showing up in any aspect of their life, whether it's parts of their personal life or professional life or any side hustles or fashion projects that they have on the side, to know that yeah, you can step back and then step back into it at times that are right for you. And look, I write personal goals as well. I don't know if they're goals so much. I sort of have a diary that I scribble down all the things that I want to do.
Yep.
And that's sort of my guiding light, like the direction. And like, I want to write a book or I want to create a movie. And then I always sort of reverse engineer what I want to do. And I will sometimes put timelines on it, but they're not set in stone timelines. It's not something that I have to do it at the expense of missing out on a family holiday or a family walk down to the park because I've got to use this time to do the thing. And I think so often I used to be like that, probably more so, like miss out on things that I wanted to participate in, but I felt this pressure that I had to research for my podcast interview. And I still feel that to a certain extent, but less and less pressure on myself.
Mhm.
Definitely.
I have a few last questions I ask all my guests. What does being brave mean to you?
I don't think I've ever really put much thought into what it means to me. I think it's living in alignment with your values and things that are true to you, what's true to you, and how can you live authentically? How can you show up in a way that really represents who you are as a person? I think it means being vulnerable. And we spoke about that. I think it means showing up even when you don't have all the answers, even when you know people are going to disagree with you, even when there may be tension, even when it may feel like the right thing now, but you're going to step back. It's okay. I think it's harnessing the courage and cultivating the courage to step into authenticity, stepping into meaningful work. And being comfortable, like it's uncomfortable, like it's not so like, yeah, you talk about this a lot. Like when you have courage, it doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means, yes, being uncomfortable with it and still being okay with it and stepping into it, even though your lip is shaking, even though you're trembling, even though it doesn't always feel great at that body level, you know in your heart of heart that this is the right thing. And going through it, even when other
Yeah.
people think you're crazy, even when your husband or your partner doesn't get why you're doing what you're doing. Like I've had so many times where he's like, why are you doing that? Like you're not getting paid for that. And like I invest so much into the OT lifestyle movement without really getting a cent in return. Like the film is free. So I won't charge for that. And I've had people approach me saying I should, what's the word? License it. I should license it. So that's not in alignment with me and my branding right now. It's just, I just want it to reach as many OTs. So staying true to that and being brave enough to go, even when everyone else is saying something, that I'm going to do what feels right for me, what's in my gut, what's my gut instinct, and be comfortable or uncomfortable being led by that.
Well, and I think you raised some really important points in that explanation because we can feel uncomfortable because we shouldn't do something, because it's the wrong thing, because it isn't aligned. And sometimes that can feel similar to the discomfort of the uncertainty and self-doubt and fear and trembling in your boots. And I think it sounds like, to me, I see that difference, just like you've said, is the alignment, that this is the thing that's aligned with my values. This is the thing that's aligned with who I am and how I want to be showing up and what's important to me. And that that sensation or that sort of arousal in our body that can feel really uncomfortable sometimes tells us not to do it. But if it's the thing that's aligned, then we need to kind of know that, okay, leaning into that is the thing. Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's next year. But yeah, I think it's really important to listen to that because we're not saying just do anything scared. We need to listen to ourselves when sometimes that scared is the wrong thing.
100%.
What is something brave you've done recently?
Well, I suppose going by my own definition, pretty fast, given that I suppose all these little things in my entrepreneurial journey, I don't know if I like the word entrepreneur. I don't consider myself as an entrepreneur, but going off and doing things different. I think starting the OT lifestyle movement was being brave because it was at a time where I wasn't comfortable doing it. The podcast was being brave because again, it was at a time where I didn't feel comfortable doing it. At the moment, my newest venture is writing a book. Like, I want to write a book. I've got a book in my heart. I've got it in my mind. I want to put pen to paper. So I've
Yeah.
started writing that. And again, it's so uncomfortable because I feel like I have to get every piece of evidence or read everything on every topic to be informed enough to put something in paper that's going to be published, that's going to be read by occupational therapists, and know that not everyone's going to agree with that and that there's going to be criticism. Like, you read all the time in Facebook groups, people criticizing things, and you're like, oh, cringe. Like, you don't want to be that person, but being okay with the fact that, you know what, not everyone is going to feel in alignment with this or agree with this. And I've had that with like posts too, as well, when people comment on your post and you're like, oh, yeah, like, why'd I say that? That doesn't make sense. Or they say something that challenges what you've written. And so I suppose that's a little bit of feeling that uncomfortableness, but I feel like putting it in a book is a whole new thing. So,
Right. Because in a Facebook post too, like sometimes that little bit of challenge is a beautiful opportunity for a discussion. Oh, that's another perspective. Let's discuss that perspective. Let's discuss this. I'm learning, you're learning. This discussion is valuable. But when you put a book out there, boom, it's in print. There's not a lot of room for dialogue.
no, I think so. No, exactly. And I suppose I can use this space knowing that putting out posts and learn too. So, yeah, I think, yeah, this is where I'm being challenged at the moment to grow. Even like with the Facebook post you mentioned, someone commented actually on one of my posts recently. I was just sharing a podcast and they said, Rhiannon, like, it was just like, you talk too fast. Can you please talk slower so I can understand you? And I was like, I kind of read that first and I was like, oh, like, do I talk really fast? And you think about it and you kind of, I got a little bit offended. Like, it wasn't offensive at all, but I kind of took it that way. I was like, oh, gosh, I've done how many episodes? And now I'm being told I talk too fast. And then I just thought, gosh, that's me. Like, I get excited and I do talk fast sometimes, but it brought that awareness to that. And
Mhm.
if I shouldn't have been vulnerable and started a podcast and, you go through all these things that you don't even think of, like the ums and the yahs and talking fast or whatever it is, not remembering what you're going to say and stopping and being blank halfway through a sentence. But it's just vulnerability and saying, like, I'm putting myself out here because I am willing to get better at this and I want to get better at this, even though I talk fast, even though I am going to mess it up, even though I'm not going to be perfect.
I think that we often think we need to be perfect at something before we try it. I remember before I started my YouTube channel, I started just doing like Facebook lives in my tiny little Facebook group that really not very many people were in. And I kind of thought of it as warming up and having a chance to do something imperfectly that not everybody was going to see. And that was
Fun.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I sent one of my friends saw it and I said to her, I'm so excited. This was so hard. And I even said in the video a couple times, like, I'm really, really nervous. This is hard. and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to kind of step into my values of doing it imperfectly. So here we go. And a friend of mine sent me a message and she said, "Do you want some feedback?" And I said, "No, thank you. Not right now." Like it just, the measure of success for that was doing it
Yes.
and doing it imperfectly. And I know I did it imperfectly.
Yeah.
And that was the goal. And later on, she kind of went, "Oh," and we had a conversation later. And she said, "That was interesting that you didn't want the feedback." And I said, I explained, how would you like to see OTs get a little bit more brave?
I think there's probably a few ways, but I think in whatever it is that they want to do is to just start. I think being brave means stepping into something and just starting, but knowing that it's not going to be perfect, knowing that it's not going to be polished, knowing that you might get criticism or whatever. Like we look at Michael Obama from the film Finding Me an OT. He says he was ostracized from the profession for speaking out and saying his point of view. Like, can you imagine? I think, like me, if I said something and everyone was like, no, that's not the right way. That's not occupational therapy. These are our values. This is what we stand for. And he's coming in and saying something that's new and different and novel and challenges the status quo. Like, that would be so hard for me. Whoa.
Yeah.
I draw courage from people like that because I think, gosh, I resonate. I love what he has to say. I agree with a lot of what he has to say. And so stepping out, and like, it's just that courage to just start in one small way, like whatever it is. So be led by your values and practice authentically in a way. Yeah, that feels right for you.
Now, how do people access the film?
Yes. Yeah. So it's free. It's free. I encourage people to watch it and share it. I want it to, yeah, be accessible. Um, so it's on my website, which is otlifestylemovement.com.
Okay.
And there's a tab there that says the film. And all you have to do is click on it and enter in your email address, and then you get taken to the film. So that's there, and along with the podcast is on the website, and there's a little blog. So I also, Colin, created a free ebook
Yeah.
for occupational therapists who want to learn about the different areas that we can work in. So it really kind of goes hand in hand too with the film, because it's over 100 pages. There's like 50 OTs who answered certain questions around what area they work in, why they love OT, like some questions. They've all answered the same, I think, 5 questions. And it just gives you insight into different ways and practice areas and scope. So there's OTs who talk about acupressure, animal-based practices, trauma, sex, spirituality, neurology, hospital, circus. I mean, there's just so many different areas and ways that, and it's not really organized by practice area. It's really sort of passion area, like the areas that people enjoy working in. And that could be a practice area like hospital, but it could also be like yoga. But that's free to access as well. And it gives insights from other OTs from all over the world who are practicing differently and daring to do things differently too. So they're being brave to do that.
And that's also on your website?
That's on the website. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram, Instagram is at Rhiannon Crispe. And then my Facebook is the OT Lifestyle Movement. We've got a Facebook group, which is the OT Lifestyle Movement, and the podcast. Don't forget the podcast.
And the podcast.
Yeah, the OT Lifestyle Movement. So every week I interview someone, or I will do my own little monologue, just sharing. It's all for you to soak up inspiration and insights to how you can be the best OT and do work that's meaningful to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for making this film. It truly, truly was inspiring and energizing. And thank you for being here on my podcast.
Thanks so much, Garland. I appreciate it. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for starting. Thank you for stepping out there and doing the work. Thank you.
As we close the chapter on today's invigorating conversation with Rhiannon Crispe, let's carry with us the spark of bravery and wisdom of authentic living that have been shared. Remember, the trailblazing journey of an OT is not walked alone. It's a path we pave together, one brave step at a time. Many brave OTs start solo businesses so that they can work in alignment with their values. But then the precarious feeling of being out on a ledge alone can make it so difficult to continue taking brave steps. In my Activate Vitality group program, we are a community of brave OTs who own businesses who are supporting each other in taking brave steps toward living and working in deep alignment with our values. Some days that means we're collaborating and celebrating launching new programs, and other days we are celebrating converting a whole day a week from a hustle day to one where we ignite our passions and restore. There's a link in the show notes to book a call with me if you want to discuss joining us in Activate Vitality. If today's stories have ignited a fire within you, I encourage you to keep that flame alive. Send a link of this episode to 3 OT friends who you want to be a part of the conscious rebellion, reshaping our beloved field of occupational therapy. Or post a screenshot of the episode you just listened to on Instagram with your thoughts. And please be sure to tag at BalanceWorksOT and at Rhiannon Crispe, and subscribe to the Brave OT podcast on your favorite listening platform. Thanks for listening, and as always, be brave OTs.